My name is Eleanor, and I am 68 years old. For 40 of those years, I was a librarian. Not the kind you see in movies who just shushes people, but a research librarian. My job was to find the truth hidden in stacks of books, dusty archives, and tangled webs of data. I was good at it. I believed that if you looked hard enough, every story had a truth, every person had a core of decency, and every problem had a solution waiting on a page somewhere. I was wrong. The most devastating truth I ever uncovered wasn't in a book. It was in a folder on my daughter's brand new phone. And what I found made me realize I had to write a final chapter she and her husband would never see coming. It all started 3 months ago when I agreed to move in with my daughter, Amelia, and her husband, Mark. I'd had a small health scare, a bout of pneumonia that knocked me off my feet, and they insisted. "Mom, this house is too big for you," Amelia had said, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. "What if something happens and you're all alone? We'd feel so much better having you under our roof." I recovered quickly, but they were persistent. So, I packed up a few boxes of my most cherished books and moved into their guest room, leaving behind the house I had built with my late husband, brick by brick. From the very first day, I felt like a guest who had overstayed their welcome. My routines were an inconvenience. The smell of the old books I brought with me was musty. Mark would sigh dramatically whenever I was in the kitchen at the same time as him. As if my very presence took up too much air, then came the subtle digs. Little comments designed to chip away at my confidence. "Mom, you left the porch light on all night again. Electricity isn't free, you know," Amelia would say, even though I knew I'd turned it off. Or Mark would chime in, "Eleanor, are you sure you should be driving? Your reaction time might not be what it used to be." They were planting seeds, creating a narrative of a frail, forgetful old woman. I saw it happening, but I told myself I was being too sensitive. This was my daughter, the little girl whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose tears I'd wiped away after her first heartbreak. She loved me. She was just stressed, the illusion shattered on a Tuesday afternoon. Amelia came home with a new, expensive smartphone, still in its glossy white box. She spent an hour trying to set it up, her frustration growing with every tap of her manicured nails. "Ugh, this is impossible," she huffed, throwing the phone onto the sofa. "I can't get any of my notes or contacts to transfer from my old cloud account. It's all going to be lost." I looked up from my book. "Maybe I can help, dear. I used to manage the digital archives at the library." Mark scoffed from the kitchen. "Amelia, I don't think your mom knows anything about this new tech." Ignoring him, I calmly took the new phone. "Let me see. It's usually just a matter of logging into the right account and making sure the sync permissions are enabled." For the next 15 minutes, I navigated the settings with ease. While Amelia was on the phone complaining to a friend, I logged into her cloud service. As the data began to sync, a list of folders appeared. Most were what you'd expect: vacation pics, recipes, work. But one title made my blood run cold: The Evergreen Project. Evergreen was the name of our street. The street where my house, my real home, was located. A tremor went through my hands. This was a violation of privacy, a terrible one. But a deeper instinct, the old researcher in me, took over. My heart pounding against my ribs, I tapped the folder. It wasn't a project. It was a plan. A meticulously detailed, step-by-step guide to systematically dismantling my life. The first document was a timeline. Month 1, emphasize memory lapses. Document every instance of forgetfulness, real or created. My mind flashed to the porch light. The misplaced keys they swore I had lost. Month 2, introduce Dr. Finch. I'd never heard of a Dr. Finch. The note continued, Mark's college friend. He'll conduct an independent evaluation. He knows what the report needs to say. Month 3, secure power of attorney. Use Dr. Finch's report as leverage. If she resists, threaten to go to court for full guardianship. The public embarrassment will make her sign. I had to stop reading to catch my breath. The air in the room felt thick, unbreathable. This wasn't just about them being impatient with me. This was a conspiracy. My own daughter and her husband were plotting against me. With trembling fingers, I opened the next file, a budget spreadsheet. My eyes scanned the lines of text, each one a dagger to my heart. Dr. Finch's fee, for the right diagnosis. $5,000 foot, Jessica. City Records Office, for expedited title transfer. $2,000 foot, estimated kickback from Shaw Development. $50,000 foot, Shaw Development. I recognized the name from the local news. They were known for buying up old properties, tearing them down, and putting up cheap, ugly condominiums. They were planning to sell my house, my sanctuary, to them. And who was Jessica? My niece? Amelia's cousin, but it was the last line item that broke me. Maple Grove Senior Facility, monthly cost after house sale $1,200. I knew Maple Grove. It was a grim state-run facility on the edge of town that smelled of bleach and despair. They were going to sell my beautiful home, with its rose garden and sun-filled library, take a $50,000 kickback, and then dump me in the cheapest place they could find. They weren't taking care of me. They were liquidating an asset. I felt a wave of nausea. I could hear them downstairs, laughing at something on TV. The sound was monstrous. How could the girl I raised be capable of such cold, calculated cruelty? The love I felt for her, a vast and unconditional thing, was being crushed under the weight of this horrifying truth. For a moment, all I felt was a deep, soul-crushing despair. I wanted to run downstairs, throw the phone in their faces, and scream until my voice was raw. But then, something else kicked in. The 40 years I spent in the library. The quiet, methodical patience of a researcher. The anger didn't vanish, but it cooled. It sharpened into a fine, hard point. They thought I was a doddering old woman. They saw me as a problem to be managed, a collection of assets to be seized. They had completely forgotten who I was. I wasn't just a mother. I was a librarian. And I knew how to do my research. I finished the data sync, meticulously deleting the log of my recent activity. I wiped my fingerprints from the screen, placed the phone on the coffee table, and went back to my chair. When Amelia came back into the room, I smiled at her, a calm, gentle smile that didn't betray the raging storm inside me. "All done, sweetie," I said softly. "Everything's transferred." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the house settle, and I formulated my own plan. A counter-narrative. They had started this story, but I would be the one to finish it. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a bowl of cereal. As Amelia came in, I accidentally knocked over the sugar bowl, sending a cascade of white crystals across the floor. She let out an exasperated sigh. "Mom, really? That's the third time this week you've spilled something." I looked up at her, my face a carefully constructed mask of confusion and distress. "Oh, dear," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Did I just don't know what's wrong with me lately. I'm becoming so clumsy." I watched as a small, triumphant smile played on her lips before she hid it. "It's okay, Mom," she said, her voice filled with that same fake sympathy. "Don't worry. We'll take care of you." "Yes, you will," I thought to myself as I swept up the sugar. "You'll try." The game had just begun. For the next 2 weeks, I became the finest actress of my generation. My stage was my daughter's pristine, minimalist house, and my audience was 2 people who were eagerly waiting for me to fail. I played the part of a woman losing her grip on reality with an authenticity that I'm sure would have made them proud, if they weren't so busy taking notes. I'd stand in the middle of the living room, a vacant look on my face, and ask what day it was. I would put the remote control in the refrigerator and the milk in the cutlery drawer. Each time, Amelia would rush over, her voice a sickly sweet syrup of pity. "Oh, Mom, let me help you. You're getting things all mixed up again." Mark would watch from a distance, a smirk playing on his lips, before he diligently tapped something into his phone, no doubt. Another entry for their dementia diary. They thought they were collecting evidence. In reality, they were giving me freedom. While they were at work, confident that I was at home staring blankly at the walls, the retired research librarian went back on duty. Their guest room became my secret headquarters. My old, trusty laptop was my weapon. My first target, Dr. Finch. According to their plan, he was Mark's college friend. I started there. I scoured Mark's social media, digging back through years of tagged photos and old posts until I found him, Dr. Alan Finch. The state medical board website told me he was a licensed general practitioner, not a neurologist or a geriatric specialist. That was my first red flag. A deeper search on a public records database gave me the second. Dr. Finch had 2 recent tax liens filed against his medical practice and was in the middle of a messy divorce. The man wasn't just unethical. He was desperate. He was the perfect pawn for someone looking to buy a medical opinion. I saved screenshots of everything, encrypting the files and storing them on a tiny flash drive I kept pinned inside my coat pocket. Next was Shaw Development. My research showed they were a piranha in a sea of real estate. They specialized in acquiring properties from elderly owners who didn't have family to advocate for them. A pattern emerged, a sudden health decline, a quick sale for well below market value, and then a rapid demolition. There were whispers on local community forums of lawsuits that had been quietly settled out of court. They didn't just build ugly condos. They preyed on the vulnerable. And my daughter was serving me up as their next meal. The hardest part was investigating my niece, Jessica. Her betrayal felt different, a casual cruelty that somehow stung even more. I needed to hear it from her own mouth. One evening, I approached Amelia with a furrowed brow. "Honey, I was looking at some old papers today, and I'm so confused about the property taxes on the Evergreen house. Didn't they go up last year? I can't make sense of it." Just as I predicted, Amelia's eyes lit up. "You know who would know, Mom?" "Jessica." She's a whiz with all that stuff at the city records office. I'll give her a call for you. She put the phone on speaker. Before she dialed, I discreetly started the voice recorder app on my own phone, which was sitting on the end table beside me. Jess? It's Amelia. Hey, I've got my mom here, and she's a little confused about her property deed, Amelia began, emphasizing the word confused. Jessica's voice came through, friendly and professional. Hi, Aunt Eleanor. What seems to be the trouble? Oh, Jessica, dear, I said, letting my voice sound frail. It's all so complicated. All these numbers and legal words. Amelia and Mark think it might be getting a bit much for me to handle on my own. It was a baited line. And she took it. Well, you shouldn't have to worry about that for much longer, Auntie, Jessica said smoothly. Amelia told me you guys are working on a plan to simplify things. Once the new paperwork is filed, Mark and Amelia will be able to handle all of that for you. My heart hammered in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. New paperwork? What sort of paperwork? There was a slight pause. Oh, just, Jessica stammered, clearly realizing she'd said too much. Just standard updates. Amelia can explain it all. Don't you worry your head about it. But she'd said enough. She'd confirmed it. A plan. Paperwork. My own niece was an active participant. I saved the recording. The evidence file was growing. A week later, Amelia approached me after dinner. She sat beside me on the sofa, taking my hand in hers. Her touch felt like a spider crawling on my skin. Mom, she said, her expression a perfect performance of loving concern. We've been so worried about you lately. Your forgetfulness, the confusion. We've made an appointment for you with a wonderful doctor, Dr. Finch. He specializes in helping people. In your situation. A doctor? I asked, feigning anxiety. I feel fine. It's just a checkup, to be safe, Mark added from his armchair, not even looking up from his tablet. He's the best. The day of the appointment, I allowed myself to be led like a lamb to the slaughter. Dr. Finch's office was in a small, unimpressive building. He had a weak handshake and eyes that wouldn't quite meet mine. He ran me through a series of cognitive tests that were insultingly simple, but I intentionally got several questions wrong. Who is the current president? He asked. I named the one from 2 terms ago. He showed me a picture of a camel. What is this animal? I called it a horse. He asked me to draw a clock showing the time 3:45. I drew the numbers jumbled and out of order. Throughout the sham evaluation, I watched him. He wasn't assessing me. He was building a case. He twisted my answers. My simple, feigned mistakes became significant cognitive impairment. My slight hesitation became symptomatic of memory processing issues. He was a hired gun, and I was his target. As we left, he patted my hand and told Amelia he'd have his full report ready in a few days, but that she was right to be proactive. The emotional toll of this deception was heavier than I could have imagined. Every fake smile I gave my daughter felt like a betrayal of the mother I used to be. Every night, I would lie in my bed and feel a profound, aching loneliness. I was a ghost in my own life, watching my family plot my burial. There were moments I nearly broke, moments I wanted to scream the truth and shatter their smug faces. But I held on, fueled by a cold fury that burned brighter than my grief. 3 days later, the official-looking envelope arrived. That evening, Amelia sat me down at the kitchen table, Mark standing behind her like a silent executioner. She opened the letter and began to read Dr. Finch's report aloud. It was a work of fiction. Words like advanced dementia, inability to reason, and poses a danger to herself filled the page. He painted a picture of a woman who was completely disconnected from reality. A woman who desperately needed to have her freedom taken away for her own safety. When she finished reading, Amelia folded the letter, her eyes shining with fake tears. She looked at me, her face the perfect mask of sorrow. "Oh, Mom," she whispered, her voice cracking with manufactured emotion. "I'm so sorry. It's worse than we thought." She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the final blow. "Based on Dr. Finch's professional recommendation," she said, her voice now firm and resolute, "Mark and I believe it's time we talk about getting power of attorney. We need to be able to make decisions for you. It's the only way to keep you safe." The trap they had been setting for months was finally ready to spring. I looked from her face to Mark's, both of them watching me, waiting for me to break, to cry, to give in. I just stared back, my mind whirring. Let them think they've won, I told myself. The best players never show their hand until the final round. I looked at the power of attorney documents Amelia had placed on the table. The black ink on the crisp white paper looked like a cage. They expected tears. They expected a fight, followed by a weary, defeated surrender. I gave them something different. I let my shoulders slump, my chin tremble, and a single, silent tear roll down my cheek. I looked at my daughter, my face a canvas of betrayal and confusion. My own mind. It's failing me, I whispered, the words sounding hollow in the quiet room. I never thought this would happen. I pushed the papers away gently. This is so much to take in, Amelia. All my life, I've handled my own affairs. To just sign it all away. I let my voice trail off. Can I just have a little time? A day or two. I need to go through my old file box. To remember how things are. It was the perfect response. To them, it wasn't defiance. It was the last flicker of a dying flame. A confused old woman wanting to cling to her memories before the darkness consumed her. Mark and Amelia exchanged a glance, a silent communication that radiated condescending pity. Of course, Mom, Amelia said, her voice soft and soothing, as if speaking to a child. Take all the time you need. We'll sign them on Friday. That gives you 2 whole days. They were so confident. They believed time was on their side, that every passing hour only cemented their victory. They had no idea I was about to use those 48 hours to burn their world to the ground. That night, I began the final phase of my plan. I needed them to get careless. I needed them to reveal the last piece of the puzzle, the kickback from Shaw Development. I had their motive, but I needed to hear them say it. I retrieved the old metal file box from my closet and sat at the dining table, making a show of sorting through yellowed documents. I pulled out my original will, drafted years ago when my husband was still alive. I let out a loud, theatrical sigh. Amelia, who was watching a show in the living room, looked over. What's wrong, Mom? Oh, it's just this old will, I said, tapping the paper. Everything goes to you, of course. But I was just thinking about my cousin Sarah in Oregon. Her daughter is starting college soon. They've had such a hard time financially. I looked up, meeting Amelia's eyes. I wonder if it's too late to make some changes. A person should be able to help their family, don't you think? I saw it. A flicker of pure, unadulterated panic in her eyes. The idea that the grand prize, the house, could be diluted or given away was a possibility she had never considered. Change the will. She stammered. Mom, you can't. It's already settled. It's too complicated. I don't know, dear, I said dreamily. I think Sarah could really use the help. I folded the will, put it back in the box, and announced I was feeling tired and was going to bed. Before I left the room, I performed my final act of stagecraft. I took the tiny digital voice recorder I'd bought weeks ago and, under the guise of straightening a decorative pillow on the sofa, tucked it deep into the crevice between 2 cushions. It was positioned perfectly to capture any conversation in the living room. In my room, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, my ear pressed against the door, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. For an hour, there was nothing but the muffled sound of the television. I started to fear my gamble hadn't worked. Then, I heard the TV click off. The show was over. The real performance was about to begin. Amelia's voice was a harsh, panicked whisper. She's going to change the will, Mark. I saw it in her eyes. She's going to call her cousin Sarah and give her a piece of the house. Calm down, Mark's voice was low and steady, but laced with an urgency I hadn't heard before. She can't do anything if she's not legally competent. That's the whole point of Dr. Finch's report. But we don't have the power of attorney yet. What if she calls a lawyer tomorrow morning? What if she drains her bank accounts? All our planning, the money we already gave Finch. It'll all be for nothing. She's not going to call a lawyer, Mark said, his voice dropping even lower. She's too confused to even find the number. We just need to get her to sign the papers on Friday. First thing in the morning. We'll tell her it's just a formality for her insurance. There was a pause. Then he said the words I had been waiting for. The words that would be his undoing. Listen to me. I spoke to Shaw this afternoon. He's ready to move as soon as we have the title. We cannot lose that $50,000 kickback, Amelia. That money is our future. Our fresh start. 50,000. Amelia repeated, the greed in her voice overriding the panic. You're right. You're right. We just have to hold it together for 2 more days. Exactly. Now stop worrying. Her mind is mush. By this time next week, she'll be settled in at Maple Grove, and we'll be signing escrow papers. I backed away from the door, my body trembling not with fear, but with a cold, triumphant rage. I had it. The smoking gun. Their entire criminal conspiracy, confessed in their own words, now stored on a tiny memory card. The next morning, while they were at work, I retrieved the recorder. I put on my coat, walked to the public library 2 towns over, a place where no one would recognize me, and used one of their computers. I created a new, anonymous email address. I had already researched my final ally, a man named David Davies, a retired district attorney who now ran a small, private firm specializing in elder fraud. His website was filled with testimonials from families he had saved from predators, both outside and inside their own homes. I composed a short, precise email, subject, urgent consultation, evidence of felony elder fraud. Dear Mr. Davies, I am a 68-year-old woman. My daughter and son-in-law are in the process of fraudulently securing power of attorney in order to seize my primary residence, approximate value $750,000, and other assets. Their plan involves a falsified medical diagnosis from a compromised physician and collusion with a city employee. I have compiled a complete file of evidence, including financial records, background checks, and multiple audio recordings of the co-conspirators discussing their plan in detail. This includes a confession of accepting a $50,000 kickback from a property developer. They intend for me to sign the final documents this Friday. Time is of the essence. I require your immediate assistance. Sincerely, a research librarian. I attached one file, the audio of Mark mentioning the $50,000 kickback, and hit send. Then I logged out, cleared the computer's history, and walked home. For the rest of the day, I felt a strange sense of calm. The research was done. The evidence was gathered. Now, I had to trust that I had chosen the right person to help me present it. I checked my anonymous email account every hour. The silence was unnerving. As evening fell, doubt began to creep in. What if he was too busy? What if he thought it was a prank? Then, at 9 p.m., a new message appeared in the inbox. It was from him. The message was brief, but it sent a surge of adrenaline and hope through my entire body. Librarian, I've listened to the audio. Stop all communication with them about this matter. Do not sign anything. Do not give them any reason to suspect. I've seen this exact playbook a dozen times. My office will call you tomorrow at 10 a.m. on the number you provided. We're going to turn their trap into our trap. David Davies. I closed the laptop, my hands steady. The cavalry was coming. And I was no longer alone. Thursday morning felt like the calm before a hurricane. At precisely 10 a.m., my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I answered, my voice a practiced, wavering whisper. Hello? A man's voice, calm and full of quiet authority, came through the line. Am I speaking with the librarian? Yes, I breathed. This is David Davies. I have reviewed your file. Your research is impeccable. You've done 90% of my job for me. Now, it's time for us to do the last 10% together. Can you meet me this afternoon at 2 o'clock? There's a small cafe called the Daily Grind on Elm Street, 2 towns over. I'll be in a booth at the back. I don't know if I can get away, I said, playing my part for anyone who might be listening. You're meeting your old book club friend, Susan, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. You haven't seen her in ages. You're having lunch. Be there. The line went dead. I hung up, a newfound strength surging through me. At lunchtime, I approached Amelia. Dear, I was on the phone with Susan, from my old library book club. She wants to meet for a coffee this afternoon. It's been so long. Would it be all right if I went? Amelia could barely contain her delight. My wanting to see a friend was a sign of normalcy that would make my subsequent decline seem all the more tragic. It was perfect for their narrative. Of course, Mom. That's wonderful. She chirped. Do you need Mark to drive you? No, I said quickly. The fresh air will do me good. I'll take the bus. This would ensure I wasn't followed or timed. The Daily Grind was quiet. I saw him immediately, a man in his late 60s with sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He stood as I approached the booth. Librarian, he said, shaking my hand firmly. Call me David. For the next hour, I laid out my entire file on the table between us. The flash drive with the encrypted files, my handwritten notes, the timeline of events. I walked him through every piece of evidence, my voice low but steady, the librarian in me taking over as I presented my research. He listened intently, not interrupting once. When I was finished, he leaned back, a look of grim admiration on his face. Eleanor, he said, using my real name for the first time. This is one of the cleanest cases of premeditated felony fraud I've ever seen. They've left a trail of breadcrumbs a child could follow. And your audio recording of the kickback discussion. That's the ball game. So, what happens now? I asked, my heart pounding. Do we go to the police? Not yet, David said, a strategic glint in his eye. A police report would cause them to lawyer up and destroy evidence. We're not going to give them that chance. They've set a trap for you. We're going to let them walk right into it, then spring a better one. He leaned forward. Here's the plan. You are going to agree to sign the power of attorney tomorrow morning. I flinched, but he held up a hand. You'll tell them you want to do it at your house, at the dining room table, where you feel comfortable. You'll insist on it. They'll agree because they'll see it as you being weak and sentimental. He continued, a power of attorney requires a notary to witness the signature. Mark and Amelia have likely arranged for their own. You will tell them, very sweetly, that your old friend Susan recommended a wonderful mobile notary who makes house calls, and that you've already booked her for 10 o'clock, as a way to help out. They'll see it as you being confused but helpful, and they won't object to saving a few dollars. And this notary? I began. Is a former colleague of mine, David finished. Her name is Maria, and her stamp carries the full weight of the law. I will also be there. You will introduce me as your old financial advisor, Mr. Peterson. You've asked me to come just to look things over and make sure everything is in order. My mind raced, seeing the pieces fall into place. It was brilliant. A Trojan horse. They will be so close to the finish line, they won't see it coming, David said. We let them lay out the documents. We let them explain everything. We let them think they have won. And then, Eleanor, you will put down the pen, and you will give the floor to me. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I went home and told Amelia the plan, my voice full of a convincing, gentle confusion. She and Mark readily agreed, their greed making them blind. Friday morning arrived, gray and overcast. The mood in the house was electric with a strange, predatory anticipation. At 9:55 a.m., the doorbell rang. It was a woman with a kind smile and a professional briefcase. Maria, the notary. A few minutes later, David Davies arrived, looking every bit the part of a stuffy but harmless financial advisor. Amelia and Mark greeted them with polite, triumphant smiles. We all sat at the dining room table, the very table where I had shared thousands of meals with the daughter who was now about to strip me of everything. Amelia placed the power of attorney documents in front of me with a flourish. Okay, Mom, she said, her voice bright and cheerful. This is it. Once you sign this, you won't have to worry about a single thing ever again. We'll handle everything. I looked at her, at my beautiful daughter, her face glowing with victory, and I felt a pang of grief so profound it almost took my breath away. This was the last moment. The last moment before the illusion shattered and she would see me, truly see me, for the first time in months. I picked up the heavy black pen. Maria the notary adjusted her glasses. David watched, his face impassive. Mark was practically vibrating with excitement. I held the pen over the signature line, my hand steady. The room was silent, and then, I put the pen down. I folded my hands and looked directly at Amelia and Mark. Before I sign, I said, my voice no longer frail but clear and resonant, I have a few questions. I'm just a forgetful old woman, after all. Perhaps you could clarify a few names for me. They stared at me, their smiles frozen. The first name, I said, enunciating each syllable, is Dr. Alan Finch. The second is your cousin Jessica at the city records office. And the third? The third is a company I find very interesting. Shaw Development. The color drained from Amelia's face. Mark's jaw went slack. They looked at each other in pure, dawning horror. They knew. Somehow, I knew. I don't know what you're talking about, Mom, Amelia stammered. Oh, I think you do, I said calmly. David Davies chose that moment to clear his throat. He placed his briefcase on the table and opened it. Perhaps I can help clarify, he said, his voice shedding the persona of a meek advisor and taking on the hard edge of a prosecutor. My name is not Mr. Peterson. It is David Davies, and I am Mrs. Miller's legal counsel. He looked at Amelia and Mark, his eyes like chips of ice. My associate here, Maria, is indeed a notary. But for the last 15 years, she was also a lead investigator with the state's white-collar crime division. He pulled out a small digital recorder from his briefcase. And we have a few recordings we'd like to play for you. Let's start with the one where you discuss your $50,000 kickback. Amelia let out a small, strangled gasp. Mark shot to his feet, his chair scraping violently against the floor. This is insane. She's crazy. She's making all this up. You can't listen to her. David held up a hand, silencing him. Actually, her mental state is perfectly sound. We have a full, independent evaluation to prove it. Yours, however, might be in question after this. He paused, letting the silence hang in the air. Because a detective from the district attorney's elder fraud unit has been parked across the street for the last 10 minutes, listening to every word of this conversation. He gestured calmly towards the front of the house. And he has a warrant for your arrest, and a second one to search this entire house for evidence. Just then, as if on cue, the doorbell rang. Two sharp, decisive chimes that echoed through the silent room like a death knell. The trap had just snapped shut. The doorbell's echo faded, replaced by a silence so heavy it felt like a physical weight. Amelia stared at the front door, her face a mask of utter disbelief. The confident, cruel architect of my downfall was gone, replaced by a terrified child who finally understood that the game was real. Mark was a statue of impotent fury, his knuckles white as he gripped the back of a chair. David Davies walked to the door and opened it. A man in a simple suit stepped inside, his eyes sweeping across the scene at the dining table. He didn't look at me. His focus was entirely on Amelia and Mark. Amelia Reed, Mark Reed, the detective said, his voice devoid of emotion. I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted theft, and forgery. That's when the dam broke. Amelia crumpled, sobbing hysterically. No. No, this is a mistake. Mom, please. She turned to me, her hands outstretched, her face streaked with tears. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. I'm your only family. I looked at her, not with the hate she probably expected, but with a profound and bottomless sadness. The love I had for the little girl she once was ached in my chest like a phantom limb. A family is a circle of trust, Amelia, I said, my voice quiet but firm, cutting through her cries. You turned it into a business transaction. And this? This is just the cost of doing business. Her face fell, the last glimmer of hope extinguished. She finally understood that the mother she thought was a fool had been her judge and jury all along. As the detective cuffed her hands behind her back, she didn't look at me again. Mark remained silent, his eyes burning with a hatred that was almost a physical force, a final, parting gift of his poison. They were let out of my house. The front door clicked shut, and the silence they left behind was deafening. I was alone with David and Maria, the power of attorney documents still sitting on the table, a testament to a future that would never happen. I gently pushed them into the trash. In the months that followed, the full force of the justice system that I had put into motion unfolded. Faced with my meticulous evidence, the audio recordings, the financial trail, the background checks, Amelia and Mark had no defense. They pleaded guilty to avoid a drawn-out, public trial. Amelia was sentenced to 3 years in prison, Mark to 5, due to his role in orchestrating the kickback with Shaw Development. Jessica lost her city job and received 2 years of probation, but my research had started a much larger avalanche. The investigation into Shaw Development uncovered a pattern of predatory acquisitions spanning a decade, leading to a class action lawsuit from dozens of other families. Dr. Finch lost his medical license and faced his own charges for fraud. My little counter-operation had exposed a rot that ran deep through the community. I couldn't stay in the house. The memories were tainted. Every corner held a ghost of the betrayal. With David's help, I put it on the market. I didn't sell it to the highest bidder or a developer. I sold it to a young family with 2 small children, for a fair price. I watched them through the window on the day they moved in, saw their little girl run laughing through the rose garden my husband and I had planted, and I knew it was the right decision. The house deserved to be a home again. With the proceeds, I moved into a bright, modern apartment downtown. But I wasn't ready for a quiet retirement. The fire that had been lit inside me during those dark weeks refused to go out. I had a new purpose. 1 year after that fateful Friday, I sat in a small but bustling office. On the glass door, the gold lettering read, "The Evergreen Project." I had taken their name for their cruel plan and repurposed it, turning a symbol of my potential demise into a beacon of my new life. It was a non-profit organization I had founded with David Davies, dedicated to providing free investigative and legal resources to seniors facing elder fraud. My librarian skills were sharper than ever. I taught seniors how to spot phishing scams, how to secure their digital lives, and how to document evidence if they suspected a loved one was taking advantage of them. I managed a small team of volunteer researchers, mostly other retirees with sharp minds and time on their hands, who would dig into suspicious contractors, questionable financial advisors, and predatory companies. We were a small army of gray-haired detectives. My phone rang. It was Nora, a 75-year-old woman we were helping. Her nephew had been slowly draining her savings account. "Eleanor," she said, her voice filled with a strength I hadn't heard before. "I did what you said. I recorded him. He admitted everything." "Good work, Nora," I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "I'll have David file the report this afternoon. You did it. You fought back." After the call, I looked around my office. My life was no longer small or silent. It was filled with purpose, with the quiet hum of important work, with the camaraderie of my team and the gratitude of the people we helped. I had lost a daughter, but I had found a new family, a chosen family bound by a shared mission of justice. I occasionally received letters from Amelia in prison, filled with remorse and regret. I read them, and I hoped she would find a way to heal, but I knew my path was separate from hers now. Forgiving her was a private act I did for my own peace, but reconciliation was a door that was permanently closed. Trust, once shattered so completely, could never be truly rebuilt. Looking out the window at the city below, I thought about the journey I had taken. I had walked through the darkest valley of betrayal and emerged on the other side, not just intact, but stronger. More myself than I had been in decades. The library had taught me how to find the truth on a page, but my daughter had taught me a much harder lesson, that the truth has no power unless you are willing to fight for it. I had fought for my life, for my dignity. And in doing so, I had finally, truly, become free. What an incredible journey of strength and resilience. Eleanor's story is a powerful reminder that our worth is not defined by how much we sacrifice, but by the dignity with which we demand to be treated. What did you think of the way she turned the tables on her own daughter? Have you ever witnessed a situation where quiet intelligence won out against loud deception? We would love to hear your thoughts on the story and its lessons in the comments below. If you have a similar story to share, our community is here to listen. If this video moved you, please show your support by giving it a like. It helps us create more content just like this. And to make sure you don't miss our next dramatic and thoughtful story, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. May you always have the courage to stand up for your truth. And may you find peace and hope, even after the most difficult storms. Be well, and we'll see you in the next story.